Welcome to the Green Box Shift, where Matt and Kim Trent share career insights to help you turn potential into achievement. Join us weekly as we explore powerful concepts, offer actionable advice, and guide you from limitations to success.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Green Box Shift. We're Matt and Kim Trent, and we're thrilled to continue this journey with you. Last week, we introduced the foundational concepts that will guide all of our future discussions in this podcast. Those concepts were the following: personal intellectual capital, the platinum rule, and the shift from red box to green box.
That's right. And today we're diving into a critical topic that everyone faces at some point in their career: navigating inflection points, or what we like to call career crossroads. These are those pivotal moments when you need to make a significant decision that could shape the direction of your career.
Whether it's deciding to take on a new role, pivoting to a different industry, or even contemplating starting your own business, these inflection points can both be exciting and daunting. The choices you make at these crossroads can have a lasting impact on your professional trajectory.
In this episode, we're going to help you identify these inflection points, understand their significance, and provide you with some strategies to navigate them effectively. Our goal is to give you the tools to approach these moments with confidence and clarity, ensuring that your decisions align with your long-term goals and personal intellectual capital. Okay, so today we're talking about career inflection points, or what we also like to call career crossroads. And people typically think of inflection points in their life in terms of more personal aspects like marriage, children, graduations. So what would you consider from a professional standpoint a career crossroad?
All right, so professional inflection points or career crossroads, this type of thing. It's like there's some big ones that we all run into. Should I pursue a new job? Should I pursue a promotion? Should I go receive some additional education? Should I pursue a different project or a different assignment? These are all things where you make the choice. You have a decision to make, right? There's other kinds of inflection points that are kind of introduced involuntarily, right? So like a layoff or something like that, you're still at an inflection point. We'll deal with those in a second, but these are ones where you're in control about the decisions you make. Let's start there.
It's more of a voluntary type of thing.
Yes, it's more of a voluntary. So we'll start with voluntary ones. We'll talk about involuntary kind of ones in a second. The voluntary ones, you're in control. You get to make the choice. Do I, go pursue these different things, or do I stay on my current path? What we try to tell people in this situation is think strategically. Don't just look tactically. So tactically changing jobs, for example, might give you more pay or give you something that you're looking for right now. It's a very tactical thing. It's right in front of you and you can see it and you can pursue it. But if your tactical decisions are aligned with your strategy, in other words, what do you ultimately want to do? So if you can look down the road a bit and go, okay, what do I want to do 3 years from now? And how does that factor into this decision I have to make? Do I pursue this or do I stay on my existing path? Where do I want to be in 3 years? The quick decisions, sometimes the tactical decisions, are ones that get us into a little bit of trouble because we think, oh my gosh, this is a 10% increase in pay, I'm going after this. Well, you go after it, and then the result is, yeah, but it really wasn't aligned with what your purpose was or other things that you're interested in pursuing. And so all of a sudden, that quick hit of a 10% increase, for example, in pay, turns out to be, sends you in a negative path in terms of your career trajectory, because it now all of a sudden you want to get out of that job and you're going to have to go find something different again.
Right. And we talk about pick a lot and how important it is to align with the current knowledge you have, but also you always want to be acquiring pick, and strategically is that role maybe the thing you're thinking about doing, putting you in a position where you're going to acquire more pick, learn more.
Exactly. So that's one of the criteria that we share with people, right, at that when they're at an inflection point or a crossroads. Think about your personal intellectual capital. So if you're always in this mode of trying to acquire new skills, knowledge, and experiences, when you're thinking about that strategically, again, it will help you sometimes make this decision about which path to take. Because if you know that you're on this constant, and we hope you are, right, that you're constantly on this mission to accumulate more and more personal intellectual capital, then that's another criteria you take into consideration. It also helps you look strategically at something. So when you're evaluating that new job, for example, you can look at it and say, okay, this new job, I'm going to use, a certain amount of my personal intellectual capital I have. That's why they wanted to hire me for this. And that's why I was interested in it. But what does the future look like? Am I going to be in a position where I'm going to acquire more skills, knowledge, and experiences I don't have right now? Is that going to complement? So at the end of some period in the future, after I've been in that new job for a while, what does my pick look like there? Because if that pick can be parlayed or leveraged into better opportunities that are even more aligned with what you want to do, a few years into the future or some point in the future, that's great. That's a positive for making that change. Also, though, and we've talked about this a lot with people, is don't forget about the current role that you're in right now. So if the decision at the inflection point is, do I stay in my current role or do I change roles? Your current position, you have to ask yourself, have I exhausted all the possibilities for the opportunities that are around me in my current world? Because that's not as disruptive as changing jobs, changing companies, that type of thing. You can change jobs a lot of times inside of your existing company if there's an opportunity. The challenge is, can you find the opportunities? And so that could be part of the strategic, tactical versus the strategic decision-making you're going through while you're saying, do I stay in my current role? Okay, how much pick am I using right now? Maybe I'm not using a lot of it, and that's why I'm thinking about changing something here. Well, okay, can that pick be used to open up another opportunity in my current situation? Then also, if I stay in this current situation, what does my future outlook for acquiring new pick look like? So an easy way to do this, right? A simple way to do this in terms of criteria is two things. One, how is my purpose impacted strategically with this decision? And then how is my pick going to be impacted by either one of these decisions? So sometimes what you're looking for at these crossroads is you're looking for some kind of tiebreaker. If it seems to be close, which pushes you in a particular direction. The caution here is just make sure that you're taking care of your tactical need without sacrificing your strategic need as well.
Right.
So let's talk about involuntary inflection points, because unfortunately these are things that happen to pretty much all of us at some point or another. So kind of an extreme one, but one that's pretty sensitive for most people, is a job loss. So if people are impacted by, let's say, a layoff, they're at an inflection point. Okay. Again, I think the trick here is that when you look at these inflection points, yes, you were forced into the situation to have to make decisions, but regardless of how you got there, whether it was one that was voluntary, involuntary, you're still at the inflection point. So the same things still hold true. That's the good news. So what is my pick? How am I using it? What am I doing tactically? So in the short term versus how does that support my long-term ideas?
Right.
People get into trouble with this a lot when they're when they're pursuing new opportunities. So if they've been laid off, for example, job loss, gonna go pursue something different, need to apply for something, people look at it and go, I'm gonna take the first thing that comes to me.
Right, because it's a pretty emotional time. It can be, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of emotions wrapped up in the loss of your job and your tribe, people that you're used to being with every day.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're in a situation where you think, the pain of being unemployed is so great that I'm just going to accept the first thing that seems reasonable, that's focused so heavily on the tactical without focusing much on the strategic.
Right.
So I tell people when they're in that situation, just think about this for a second, because I know you're going to start receiving a paycheck again. But if this job is not aligned with your purpose, not aligned with your personal intellectual capital, you look at it and go, this is a short-term thing. I'm going to start getting a paycheck again. And then while I'm getting that paycheck, I'm going to keep my job search going. I'm going to try to find something else. Now you've got a different story. Your story is more complicated. It's more complex. To tell that to another person in the future going, yes, I lost this job. I took this other job, but I just took it for a short period of time so that I could, generate income. And then but I was always looking for my next thing that was more aligned with what I originally wanted to do. And then it gets so complicated that you're telling people this, they'll naturally think, well, is that what you're doing in this situation now?
Right. Naturally, you as the interviewer, would you automatically be thinking, oh man, are they just going to turn around and do that to me too?
Yeah.
I don't want to waste my time here.
Exactly right. I mean, this is the situation that you get in. So if you can slow down, think tactically, okay, need income. But when I'm looking for income as quickly as possible, at least I can apply some criteria at this inflection point to go, okay, what does at least the next 3 years look like, or 6 months look like, or something more strategic? So yeah, you definitely want to focus on the tactical pieces, but you also want to keep your strategy in mind. Again, it's so different how you got to that inflection point, either voluntarily got to this inflection point or involuntarily got to this inflection point. It's still the same mix of balance of tactical versus strategic. They're both important. You just need to make sure your tactical is aligned with your strategic.
Right. And if you always kind of come back to your center, which should be your personal intellectual capital and your purpose, either scenario, involuntary or voluntary, use that to center your thought processes and your strategy versus making emotional decisions.
Exactly.
So what are some best practices that we commonly talk about with people when we talk about career inflection points?
I think the biggest thing is, and this is hard because whether you got to that inflection point through some voluntary decision or some involuntary situation, emotions are typically running high. So a lot of times what happens to people is when they voluntarily make this decision to think about another job, for example, this is just an easy one, they end up at that crossroads and the emotions are running high, because especially if they've got a job offer in front of them. So people are going, hey, we want you, you'd be fantastic here. There's all this positive energy, excitement. It plays on people's emotions, right?
Right.
So, or if you're in a situation where it's like, hey, I really need to start driving income. I need to start to earn again. I'm unemployed. This is an involuntary thing that got me to this crossroads. Again, emotions are high, right? So in either one of those situations, emotions are typically running higher than normal. Okay, so the number one thing I would tell people to do is just pause and reflect. Just slow down, slow yourself down, and have some of these conversations like we were talking about earlier, which is tactical. What's happening to me right now? How does that align with strategic? Where do I want to be as I look out into the future? The number one thing you have to do is you just have to slow yourself down. That pausing and reflecting on where you've been, how you got to this point, and then where you want things to go in the future. Again, this is a very easy way to take some of the emotional components and draw them down a little bit, where you put some limiters on those, right? So they're not overwhelming you with all of that energy that's associated with it, whether it's excitement or it's anxiety or whatever it is. That emotional piece of it can run pretty high on these things.
Right. And when you just stop to think about the data aspect, the data behind what you really know, and take all of that into account.
Yeah, that's why your pick is so important.
Right.
That personal intellectual capital anchors everything down. That and your purpose. It's easy if you keep your purpose in mind, that's a really good thing to help you with the strategic elements of the decision that you're making. So I'd say pause and reflect is a pretty big one. I'd also think that don't forget about the people in your life that are important to you, right? And so you want to seek guidance from other people.
Right.
This is all underscored by the importance of having authentic relationships, professional relationships with other people. You do not want to, in a time of need, or a time where you have to make a big decision because you're at an inflection point of the crossroads, you don't want to go seek that person out that you have a professional relationship with, but that just tells you what you want to hear. Everything you say is the greatest idea in the world. Everything's amazing, because they're not going to really help you objectively analyze the situation. They're not going to give you the value that they could if they were the type of person that's more interested in making sure that they're telling you, facts in an authentic way. They may tell you, hey, I know it's exciting because it's a 10% bump in pay, but you've been with your company for a long time and there's advantages. You have a reputation, things maybe not happen as quickly as possible, but there's some things built into that are like inherent advantages if you stay. Whereas if you change, yes, it's a bump in pay, but it's a whole new group of people. That's objective, kind of just an example of some objective feedback or analysis somebody else can provide to you if you go out and seek guidance from other people.
Right.
So go find people in your network that you have you should always have authentic relationships. Those are the best types of relationships to have. But specifically avoid those people that just tell you what you want to hear when you're at an inflection point. And then I would say one more point on this is just, balance out the risk and rewards to everything. So when we kind of try to mitigate this a little bit with the strategic versus the tactical standpoint, but also the risk and reward component is big. Again, a lot of times the carrot gets dangled out in front of you with certain options where you're thinking about pursuing something, so you can only see like the positive aspects of it. But there's always risk associated with everything. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't figure out the risk reward kind of ratio when you look at something.
Maybe a good example would be somebody who is being offered a management track from their current track. What is it? I mean, there's reward to that, especially for somebody who's been aspiring to be a manager, but there's risk in that also, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cautionary tales out there of situations like this where people, for example, were so aggressively pursuing a promotion or a different set of responsibilities that they lacked the proper preparation to go be successful on day one.
Right.
I used to use this analogy. I'm not sure if it's a good one or not, but people have reported to me and they'd be like, hey, I'm aspiring to land in this particular position, right? And I would tell people, it's like, okay, think about this like baseball. If you're in the minor leagues and your whole goal is to get to the major leagues, and the major leagues are the equivalent to this promotion, what you want to make sure you do is that you're a 300 hitter or 400 or 300, 400 batting average in the minor leagues, right? That you've demonstrated mastery over hitting in the minor leagues. So when you get to the major leagues, you have all the tools and the foundational components for you to be successful on day one. If the whole goal is just to get to the major leagues without the preparation, yeah, you may get to the major leagues based on talent and capability. But if you're not equipped to be successful on day one there, you won't hit. If you don't hit, you're back in the minor leagues. And I've seen people advance so quickly because they're pursuing something so aggressively, and they were effective at obtaining the position, but they weren't successful in the preparation, that once they got there, they failed and they were never given that opportunity ever again. They had to leave the company, change the situation, scenery, to go find another opportunity because people looked at them and said, that person tried that before and they failed miserably at it.
Right.
They were awful. We're not going to give them. This stuff carries around with people for long periods of time. So again, preparation is extremely important, and risk rewards are extremely important when you're kind of taking all that into consideration.
So we talk a lot in these episodes about red box and green box. How does that apply in this situation with career crossroads?
A lot of times we're interested in pursuing new opportunities or did something different. Again, that could be a new job, that could be a different industry, that could be a different assignment. Anything that involves change that introduces this decision point. It's always good to think about red box and green box in that context, because if what you're doing in your career, if you apply the red box and green box to your career, what you're doing up until this point or right now could be that red box. These are all the known areas. You have unexplored needs too. We talk about finding other people's unexplored needs, but you as an individual actually have your own unexplored needs. So there's some things that you really just haven't spent enough time thinking about that you actually want to go accomplish. Well, what do I want to do? What do I want to learn? What opportunities do I want to have in front of me? That's all green box thinking. So when you think about yourself, you can apply the red box to green box to yourself. It relates to your career. That helps with inflection points because you go, okay, this is what I'm understanding today, which is the red box. But if I start to think about what my unexplored needs are and I start to uncover what those are, maybe that's the criteria I use to say, I need to make this change. I'm going to take this new job. I'm going to accept a new assignment. I want to change industries. I want to see if my knowledge in this industry is applicable in another industry. Maybe that's where you see that you have this unexplored need around a challenge.
Right.
Right.
And that sense of accomplishment when you meet that challenge.
Exactly. So we talk a lot about applying red box and green box in conversations with others. Red box and green box applies to ourselves as well, though. And I think that's a different way to look at, inflection points and considering, what do I know? It's safe in that red box because, there's predictability in that, in the known. This happens with people that are laid off too, right? They go, well, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to find another job just like the one I had because it's known to me. I understand it. But I also tell them it's like, hey, food for thought here. Maybe there's an unexplored need you have that this is a great opportunity, even though you didn't ask to be in this situation, great opportunity to expand your thought process about what else do you want to do? If you're just going to look for the identical job you had before, but just with a different organization, yeah, there's some comfort that you'll take in that.
Right.
But are you losing an opportunity to potentially add something else into this, right? So I think it's good to look at yourself with what's your red box and then what's those green box of unexplored opportunities, and consider those when you're looking at these inflection points and consider what path you take.
Okay, so we had some questions come in since our previous podcast, and the first one that we're going to talk about today is from a job seeker. So what are some tips for standing out in a competitive job market?
If you look at opportunities and you think, okay, how am I qualified for this? Realize that pretty much in every situation, you're going to have there's a level of competition there. So you're going to be competing against other people. So what you want to do is you want to think, okay, I'm qualified for this opportunity. If everybody else is qualified for it, right? It's going to get to some phase, like, for example, in an interview, because this is what we're trying to get down to, is we're trying to get down to the final selection round, if you will, right, for anything. If it's competitive, and typically it is, if you're talking about job searching. So you want to make sure that you have differentiators, so it's clear for somebody that's interviewing you how you're different than somebody else. So this is really important to think about our red box and green box concept here, because that job description, again, was all the red box. This is what somebody's expecting from you to do the job. When you look at any opportunity, you should be asking yourself, okay, am I qualified to do all the things they're asking for? But what are all the other things I know that are important to do a job like this? And how does that match up with my skills, knowledge, and experiences I have? Because those are the things that you want to share with other people. This is simply how you stand out in a competitive job market. Well, if you think about yourself and how you're going to have to compete against other people, what makes you unique? Those unique things, or those differentiators we call them, those are the things that you want to highlight in your resume. You want to highlight in your LinkedIn profile. You want to highlight in conversations with other people, so that when you get yourself to that final interview, right, these things are well rehearsed. They're things that you completely understand, you're conversant about. It's very fluid how you speak about these things. People go, oh, wow, yeah, he's qualified or she's qualified for this, but there's all these other things that they know how to do as well. Those are the things that we want to put the focus on, because that's what makes you different than other people.
Right.
So that's how you stand out in a competitive job market, is just looking at what you know, your pick, and then taking that and building your stories around it so that you can show how you're different.
Yeah, that storytelling aspect can be pretty critical, because stories are something that resonate with everybody. So if you can take those things that you know how to do really well and wrap a story around them, how did you learn it? How did you apply it in your job? And what was the outcome? That's a story.
That is a story. And we work with people, and we've got all kinds of storytelling techniques we use. And there's some real basic things, but I think just from the standpoint of the podcast here, I think if you think about your career as a 3-act play, you got a beginning, a middle, and an end, or a current, wherever you're at right at this point. Use that as the basis to tell your story to other people. Okay, here's been my journey up to this point. Here's kind of the introduction. This is Act 1. Act 2 was, these are the things that were going on here. This is the work I was doing. This were the results. These are kind of what, is how I summarize that part of my career. And this kind of, here's what I've been doing lately. These are all basic storytelling things. The brain can process 3-act plays. That's why everything is written that way. Books, plays, movies, everything falls in this kind of a concept. So when you're sharing things with people, that gives you just a basic structure for telling your career story. Oh, hey, I'm at a networking event. Hey, Matt, tell me about yourself. Oh, I started here. I did these things. And then you can build up the story and the anticipation for kind of that climax, or what the culminating part of the story is in Act 3, because you're just following some kind of basic formatting with that. So these are all easy techniques that you can use to kind of separate yourself out in a competitive landscape.
Okay, our next question came in from the professional development lane. How can I stay motivated in my current role while still aiming for growth?
I'm a big believer in whatever you're doing, that you do the best job possible with it, that you're constantly on the lookout for more efficient ways to do something, ways to improve, ways to have a bigger impact. And so when people tell me, hey, I'm bored in my current job, I don't doubt that they're bored in their current job. But while we're trying to figure out maybe what they could be doing that's better aligned for them, what I always tell them is like, look at everything that you have in terms of your set of responsibilities in your current job, and make sure you're maximizing your performance against every one of those things, and that you're maximizing your ability to learn new things while you're doing it. Because all of that is setting you up for future conversations with other people, where you can take these things that you're learning, that you're working on in your existing role, and you can leverage those and share those with people. So sometimes that means if I'm kind of stagnant, or I'm kind of sitting in this particular role and I'm not particularly challenged with it, then that's a good time to ask yourself, what other opportunities exist in this role I'm in that I can go ask for something else to go focus on or do or take on, or maybe it's a time to go network with other people and go find a mentor in the organization or something else. So I think, if people are lacking that motivation, just find ways to improve on what your existing responsibilities are. I'm a big believer in just kind of gamifying everything and putting yourself in situations where we're introducing challenges and we're trying to overcome the challenges. It's like if you're exercising every day and you go, okay, I do this, I ride the exercise bike for 20 minutes. You push yourself to go, okay, I typically ride it for 20, but this week I'm going to bump it up to 22 minutes.
Right.
Or I'm going to drop to 18, but I'm going to try to, pedal it at a faster rate or something. Whatever it is, you're gamifying it. You're introducing a challenge into it. It helps with motivation a lot. So I'd say if you're in, the person that submitted the question, I think if that's the situation, you just find new ways to motivate yourself based on, take your existing set of responsibilities and go, how do I improve with this? And how do I gamify some of this? I think these are the easiest, quick ways you can, introduce maybe some more motivation into what you're doing.
Okay. And our third question came in from an entrepreneur. What is the best way to validate a business idea before launching?
Yeah, I think you have a customer in mind or a client in mind for your product or service. Go find somebody that's representative of that client or customer and go have a conversation with them going, hey, I'm thinking about this. I've got this business idea to go do whatever it is. And you would be somebody that would typically buy this service or buy this particular product. Or would you buy this particular, maybe there's nobody else doing what you're doing. So you find somebody you think would be your target audience. You go find somebody that's representative of that group and ask them for their opinion. Hey, this is what I'm thinking about. You'd be amazed at the insight that you get from people going, oh yeah, nobody's doing that today. That'd be amazing if you did it. Here's what would be great if you did X, Y, and Z in that service, or if your product did, ABC. The other thing, if you're in a market where there's a lot of people providing that product or service today, you'll get people's feedback really quickly because they'll say, this is what I like about these things. This is what I don't like about these things. If your product did more of what I liked and less or eliminated the things I don't like, I would buy your stuff from you. And then it allows you to kind of go back into the laboratory, go back in on the drawing board and start to really, fill in the finer points and details about whatever your product or service are, because you've actually got input from other people. I don't know why entrepreneurs in some situations are so hesitant to go. They think they got to have the perfect thing constructed before they go talk to somebody about it.
Right.
And it's a mistake to do that because you're building like the perfect mousetrap in isolation from other people. You want to go talk to people that eventually, and here's the thing, I know from personal experience, some of those initial people I talked to about my business idea, because I thought they represented my customer base or my client base, those are the first people I went back to and sold the thing to when I had it done.
Right.
Because I'm like, hey, you gave me this feedback. I built this. Let me offer this to you either for free or let me give you some kind of discount price on this thing. And because I'm looking for a testimonial, I'm looking for a reference customer.
Right.
Right. So, include that type of insight into what you're doing. I think that's the best thing I can tell people. At least it's one of the first things you need to do.
What we've discussed today is just the beginning. If you're at a career crossroads and you want to dive deeper into how to navigate these moments effectively, we've got you covered.
In our Foundations course and personalized coaching sessions, we provide detailed strategies and tools to help you make the best decisions at these critical junctures. Visit greenboxu.com to learn more and start your journey from the red box to green box.
Remember, what we cover in these episodes is the tip of the iceberg. To really unlock your potential and navigate your career with confidence, join us in our Foundations course and coaching programs.
Ready to dive deeper? Head over to greenboxu.com to check out our Foundations course, as well as our other products and services designed for lasting success. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, and submit questions for future episodes. Until next time, keep exploring and unlocking your potential. See you on the next episode of The Green Box Shift.